Hey guys, so I'm going to do another PKD based rant video today. I'm sure I have plenty of them in me because there's just some sort of complementariness between my work and PKD's work that I feel I can expand off of easily. So today I'm going to do a video on a book I actually haven't touched on yet, and it's one of my favorites he did. It's the book Flow My Tears, the Policeman said. And maybe now and then I'll do a little rain wipe. I love the rain. It actually, for just an aside, the rain for some reason I've always loved, because when the rain touches your skin and it's cold, it's only the ego contracts, the habitual comforts. But if you let the rain touch your skin and feel that sensation, it actually brings you more into your liveliness. Okay, so I titled this video Waking Up in a Police State. So it's going to be a little bit more grim. But only if you look at it that way. I'm only interested in the truth of what's going on. I don't care if it's grim or starry and shiny. It's just about the truth. And from the truth, always the joy will become manifest. In PKD's book, there's this core plot point that I'm just going to kind of build on and expand on in my own experience. So there's this main character, Jason Taverner, and he's very invested in his public image because he's a sort of a talk show host, and his whole identity is his public image. And then this traumatic encounter happens with one of his ex-lovers that he's jilted, and he wakes up and he has no more identification. Nobody knows what he is or who he is, even though he was famous. And he doesn't have any physical ID cards either. And he finds suddenly that when he wakes up like this, he realizes that it's actually illegal to have to not have an ID, right? Which is actually true in literally true in some places. In New York, from what I understand, you can be fined if you don't have your ID on you, which is crazy, right? But it expresses something which is going on inside us, a craziness. And so I just want to say, what's fundamentally happened when this happened is that suddenly when his public image is gone, he's able to see clearly the surroundings around him. And he realizes he lives in a dystopian police state. So why might that be? What we have is a disintegration of the image, revealing the true condition of the political environment. And that's because actually this public image is a creation of the political environment. Which is something I'm constantly trying to point out, because people are always mythologizing the creation of the ego. The ego has been created because we are in some ways a slave species, you could say, or a slave population in some ways. That's why there's this education system, these conditioning mechanisms. And all these conditioning mechanisms, what are they there to do? They're to make us believe in the value of our public image. And as soon as we're invested in that, since this image is tied up with all the functioning of the state itself, of the working class working for the support of a very few, of the maintaining of the status quo, which is the support of those elite people, and also the continued degeneration and degradation of ourselves at our own hands, because we're maintaining this image in ourselves, which also ties us to all the interests of the state. And I again give an example from my high school, because the conditioning never really stuck to me as much for whatever reason. But the mission statement in our high school was to be a productive and contributing member of society. It's probably the same mission statement in a lot of high schools, right? And just wiping the lens clear as usual. So why would that be the mission statement? What is going on there? What they're doing is entangling the sense of a public image in the person with the interest of the cultural mechanism, and then convincing them that that's what their whole value rests on. So in this book, Flow My Tears, when Jason Taverner loses his public image, he's suddenly able to see things as they are. And suddenly those things come after him because he's sort of a glitch in the matrix, you could say, or someone who slipped out. And what does it mean that all these police in the book are only trying to enforce that he has an ID for who he is? It's actually that we are made to enforce the sanctions of the state onto each other by constantly making sure that we all have this public image biological software running, and if someone doesn't, we hospitalize them, or we say, oh, they've lost their sense of self, they've going crazy, they think they're Jesus, they think they're that. We only think we're Jesus when we're losing our sense of self, or that can happen because we're identifying with the savior, liberator, redeemer figure, which comes out of someone realizing the true state of affairs. And Jesus was actually an anarchic figure, right? You could say Jesus was just like Jason Taverner. He lost the public image and saw that we lived in a Roman Empire slave state. And if you want to know how to determine if you're a police state, just simply realize that there's police. So there's an enforcement of abstract laws onto the populace to make sure they're maintaining the status quo. And all you need to do is release attachment to public image to start to see how things really are. Because when that starts going, it's like suddenly the lens starts getting clearer. And it might become clear what I'm constantly signaling at too. Now I'm just going to touch upon Philip K. Dick's other book, A Scanner Darkly, which is like my top 2. And I'll probably do another video regarding it, but in A Scanner Darkly, and there's going to be spoilers here, so if you haven't read A Scanner Darkly, maybe avoid it. What I'm about to say, maybe not. It's a wonderful book regardless. It's a brilliant masterpiece about self-observation and the dynamics of that displayed in this really funky way. And so in Scanner Darkly, the main character, Bob Arctor, also has a series of events which leads him to realizing that he's enmeshed in sort of a statewide conspiracy because he's manufacturing a substance D, and there's these sort of rehabilitation centers, and he goes on to find that actually the police in the rehabilitation centers are manufacturing this drug, and he's been enmeshed in this. And this is exactly what it's like when we're waking up in a police state. We start noticing little clues, and we think we're paranoid here and there, until we realize that we've actually been made to work against ourselves into upholding a power structure which is not in our own interests. And we've actually been made to work for our own enemy inside of ourselves by attachment to this public image installation. The public image, as I said, is only with reference to the functioning of the state. So that explains the arc in Flow My Tears. In A Scanner Darkly, what happens is as Bob's public image disintegrates from this drug use, he is more and more entangled in events that cause him to realize at the end that he's been made to work in a sort of global conspiracy against himself. And there's not often enough is the political sort of anarchic ramifications of spiritual awakening expounded on. Because actually it's not this high toity thing. It's that you are releasing this image to realize that you have also been made to work in a conspiracy towards the destruction of yourself and the not well-being of the public masses, so to speak, of individuals. And the political ramifications of awakening I've talked about a little in a video called Anarchy and Spirituality, which is also in the junk folder of my profile with all the piled up stuff I've thrown out there, like little coded messages. So what you're fundamentally realizing when you overthrow your own control of yourself is that you've been controlled through that sense of controlling yourself. It's the same image install I'm talking about. And there's a sudden realization that there is no authority and there are no rulers beyond your agreement and capitulation with the perception that there is. And when you overthrow a sense of controlling yourself, you see that nothing is capable of controlling anything else. Because we can't even control ourselves. So there's going to be more and more Jason Tavners waking up and suddenly seeing that everybody around him is only interested in enforcing that they had their mental ID card on them. Because without that ID card, you're not a slave anymore. You're a master. And my videos and sentences and posts are so many ways of trying to ground spirituality into actual circumstances of what's going on the planet. And there is the circumstance of the fact that we are in a police state already and have been for thousands of years to uphold a certain power structure. And this doesn't scare me at all to talk out about it or to just be open about, because I know there are no authorities which can touch me. I am completely free and part of this natural system, which is much more vital and powerful. And I'm trying to encourage people to step out of the illusion that there's even a system there other than the one we're maintaining for the quote-unquote oppressors. Just like Huxley's Brave New World, we've been bamboozled into oppressing ourselves and loving it, or not knowing anything other than it. So look at the ways that your attachment to your public image keeps you from seeing things around you. When you watch the news or do this or that, does your mind or public image interface and edit what you're seeing? Just look at it. It's almost as if this mechanism has been ingeniously installed. And I'm working so hard to uninstall it all the time. Love you guys. That's just a quick one. I didn't really delve too much into that book. I'm going to do another video regarding the functioning of the brain as it's described and flow my tears towards it, because I think it's one of the most brilliant ideas PKD had. Freedom, love, clarity, and awareness of what's happening around us. Waking up in a police state for a better world. We are already within anarchy. Have a good day, guys.